What do you call a magician who's lost his magic? Ian. Today, I'm going to recap a 2021 action crime film called Bartkowiak. The film opens by depicting the atmosphere of an MMA match between Tomasz Bartkowiak and a fighter named Konrad. As the first half comes to a close with Tomasz controlling the fight and cornering Konrad on multiple occasions, someone seems to switch out Tomasz's drink, which is situated at the edge of the fighting arena. Unaware of the change, Tomasz consumes the drink during the break. As the second half commences, Tomasz suddenly feels unwell and disoriented, enabling Konrad to easily overpower him multiple times and take control of the fight. Tomasz's coach requests that the match be halted, but his pleas are disregarded. Ultimately, Tomasz loses the fight. 6 months later, Tomasz is employed as a security guard at a bar owned by his family and managed by his older brother, Wiktor. One evening, Tomasz confronts a brash and disruptive rapper named Steppy, asking him to leave since his behavior is making other patrons uneasy. Steppy disregards Tomasz's request and instead instructs his bodyguard to assault Tomasz and the other security personnel. Given his background as a formidable former MMA fighter, Tomasz easily handles Steppy's taller bodyguard. Tomasz and the other guards manage to restore order, escorting Steppy and his bodyguard outside, where a throng of people awaits, eager to photograph the renowned rapper. The following day, Wiktor visits Tomasz at his home and encourages him to return to MMA fighting. Tomasz, however, declines. Wiktor then reveals that Tomasz's current coach has become an alcoholic as a result of going bankrupt after Tomasz's retirement from the sport. Before departing, Wiktor hands Tomasz his boxing gloves, hoping that his brother might reconsider his decision. After sharing a hug, Wiktor drives away. A few hours later, Tomasz's mother informs him that Wiktor has been involved in a fatal accident. Tomasz rushes to the scene and finds Wiktor's car severely damaged. In the wake of Wiktor's death, Tomasz seeks out his former love Dominika to inquire about her father's whereabouts. Dominika's father, Pawel Sozoniuk, is Tomasz's former coach who spiraled into alcoholism following financial ruin. Tomasz locates Pawel at a bar and informs him of Wiktor's passing. He invites Pawel to attend Wiktor's funeral, requesting that he remain sober out of respect for his late brother. As the day of Wiktor's funeral arrives, Tomasz addresses his family and relatives who have gathered for the occasion. He speaks of his brother's virtues throughout his life, expressing his deep love for Wiktor and the profound sense of loss he feels in the wake of his sudden death. At the funeral, both Dominika and Pawel were in attendance, but they did not interact, as Dominika was extremely disillusioned with her father due to his decision to become an alcoholic and disregard his family. A few days later, Tomasz visited Pawel at the now deserted boxing training facility. Pawel expressed his disappointment in Tomasz, calling him a coward for withdrawing from the fighting world after his loss to Konrad, which cost Pawel all his money that he had bet on Tomasz's victory. Upon hearing this, Tomasz attempted to apologize, but also chastised Pawel for gambling away his entire fortune on the unpredictable outcome of a fight. Enraged, Pawel challenged Tomasz to a fight, which Tomasz easily won, given Pawel's inebriated state. The scene then transitions to Tomasz with his mother. While examining the financial records of the family bar, Tomasz's mother urged him to carry on the family business by running the bar in place of his late brother. Tomasz, however, declined her request, stating his intention to sell the bar. Although somewhat disappointed, Tomasz's mother respected her youngest son's decision and acquiesced to his desire to sell the bar rather than continue the family business. Concurrently, Dominika attended a meeting with her boss and clients, during which her boss tried to persuade investors to fund the construction of an upscale, modern development unprecedented in the city. Dominika, however, expressed doubt about the feasibility of the project, given the local residents' reluctance to sell their land. Unbeknownst to her, the company had enlisted the services of a group of thugs led by Konrad, Tomasz's former opponent, who would intimidate residents into selling their properties. Konrad and his men resorted to violence to achieve their objectives, causing many frightened residents to sell their land at low prices to the company. The focus shifts to Tomasz, who was training at home when he received a call from a prospective buyer offering $2 million for his bar. Intrigued by the enticing offer, Tomasz hurried to meet the interested party. En route, he assisted an elderly man in loading his belongings into a car and inquired kindly about their destination and the man's injury. The man's wife, however, asked Tomasz to leave immediately and refrain from meddling in their affairs. Tomasz eventually met with the prospective buyer and proceeded to sign various documents related to the sale and purchase agreement. However, just as Tomasz was about to sign the final document, he noticed the Sandstorm Company's stamp, which triggered memories of the truck that had collided with his brother's car, a vehicle owned by the Sandstorm Company. Upon realizing that something was amiss concerning Wiktor's death, Tomasz decided to cancel the transaction by tearing up the document. In another part of the city, a man named Rafal, a highly respected politician and Konrad's uncle, learns that Tomasz has not sold the family bar and intends to keep it. Rafal orders Konrad to negotiate with Tomasz, as his bar is the only property not yet controlled by the company, while other residents have sold their land and moved away. Tomasz reopens the bar, partnering with Dominika to manage it. The Bartkowiak family's bar becomes even more popular, drawing in large crowds. Tomasz rehires the previously laid-off security staff and rekindles his romantic relationship with Dominika. Business runs smoothly for several days until Tomasz spots Konrad at the bar and confronts him. Konrad inquires why Tomasz decided against selling the bar, and then leaves, ordering his men to cause a disturbance. Fortunately, the security officers manage to restore order and drive them away. Even Pawel, who is present, challenges one of Konrad's men, but they choose to leave due to their knowledge of Pawel's fighting abilities. Meanwhile, Rafal meets with the chairman of Sandstorm, Dominika's boss, and asks him to dismiss Dominika due to her relationship with Tomasz. However, Dominika's boss assures Rafal that she will not interfere with their plans, even though she is involved with a bar owner who refuses to sell to Rafal. One night, while at the bar with Dominika and other patrons, Tomasz is alarmed by a nearby explosion. Shortly afterward, Konrad calls Tomasz, threatening that the next bomb target will be the Bartkowiak family's bar. Tomasz questions whether Konrad had a hand in Wiktor's death, and Konrad replies that the incident should serve as a lesson for Tomasz not to obstruct Rafal's plans. The following day, Dominika, acknowledging their recent troubles, suggests that Tomasz sell the bar. However, Tomasz remains determined to keep the bar, especially after discovering Konrad and Rafal's involvement in his brother's death. Dominika respects Tomasz's decision and promises to support him. That evening, Konrad kidnaps the bar's security guards, kills them, and sends photos to Tomasz. He also orders his henchmen to wreak havoc at the Bartkowiak's bar while Tomasz is absent. Pawel, who happens to be there, confronts the thugs alone. As a former fighter, he defeats them. Shortly thereafter, Tomasz and Dominika arrive at the bar to find it in disarray and Pawel lying injured on the floor. They discover that he has been stabbed and quickly rush him to the hospital. The police who investigated the incident pinned the blame on Tomasz and decided to close the bar due to frequent disturbances. Tomasz suspected that the police were bribed by Rafal. The following day, Rafal ordered his nephew to kidnap Dominika in order to threaten Tomasz into selling the bar. In response to the incident, Tomasz was forced to close the bar and became increasingly frustrated upon discovering that the security guards had been killed by Konrad. Concerned for her boyfriend, Dominika suggested that Tomasz go home and rest while she cleaned the bar. However, while Dominika was cleaning the bar alone, Konrad appeared and kidnapped her. Fortunately, Tomasz returned to the bar, discovered what had happened, and engaged in a fight with Konrad outside the battle arena. Konrad managed to corner Tomasz, knock him out, and strangle him, taunting him for not being like his brother, who had screamed in fear before his death. This enraged Tomasz, who then turned the tables and overpowered Konrad. Shortly after, Rafal called Konrad's cell phone to inquire about Dominika's kidnapping. Tomasz answered the phone and informed Rafal that he had killed Konrad. Tomasz and Dominika then went to Dominika's boss's house to bait Rafal, but discovered that the boss planned to flee with all the money. Before he could escape, Rafal and his henchmen surrounded the house, immobilized Tomasz, took Dominika hostage, and killed the boss when they learned of his escape plan. As Dominika was taken away, Tomasz was left behind to endure agonizing torment. A man named Bobrowski approached Tomasz, revealing that he had tampered with Tomasz's drinks during the MMA fight with Konrad, leading to Tomasz's defeat. As Bobrowski tortured Tomasz, Pawel suddenly appeared and overpowered him. Pawel then rescued Tomasz and took him to his house. Tomasz expressed his willingness to sell the bar in order to save Dominika, but Pawel encouraged him not to give up, assuring him that they could save Dominika without losing the family bar. Pawel revealed that a formidable fighter, Steppy's tall bodyguard, whom Tomasz had defeated before, would assist them. That same night, the trio infiltrated Rafal's residence to rescue Dominika. They managed to neutralize the guards one by one. Rafal, realizing what was happening, grabbed his gun and confronted Tomasz. The two engaged in a fierce battle, with Rafal initially dominating due to his possession of weapons. However, Tomasz refused to give up and continued to fight Rafal until he ultimately succeeded in killing him. Tomasz and the others then rescued Dominika and left the scene. A few days after the incident, Tomasz was seen visiting Pawel's training ground, which had been restored and was no longer abandoned. Numerous individuals, including children and teenagers, were practicing there. Tomasz decided to resume his career as an MMA fighter, honoring his late brother's final wish. Pawel challenged Tomasz to a fight, but the two ended up embracing, as Tomasz had officially proposed to Dominika and asked for her hand in marriage. Pawel wholeheartedly approved of his daughter's union with Tomasz. If you enjoyed this video, don't be shy to hit the like button, and if you disliked it, hit the dislike button twice, just to be sure. It would be best if you watched the whole movie. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe for more videos like this.